Primary elections tested President Trump's power over the Republican Party. The elections in Indiana reinforced the president's political influence, and Ohio's primary sets up an interesting general election. And joining us now to break down the results is Nathan Gonzales, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Nathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's pretty remarkable that we're talking about Indiana state Senate races in Washington, but here we are.
Right? There's definitely an impact. Let's start in Indiana, where Trump took aim at 7 Republican state senators who opposed his plan to redraw congressional maps. 5 Trump-backed challengers won. What does this say, Nathan, about his influence over the Republican Party?
Even though President Trump is struggling nationwide and his approval rating is slumping, he is still the leader of the Republican Party. He's still the most popular, most influential, and powerful person within the party. And it was remarkable that these state senators sort of stood up to the president and stood up to the White House and declined to move forward with redistricting. But this shows that he is still powerful and influential among primary voters who ultimately pushed out most of these incumbents that oppose the president on this new map.
I think a question that many people are asking is how could this result ripple into efforts to redraw congressional maps in other states?
Well, it's going to give other Republicans who may not want to go along with the White House's proposals to redraw maps. If they're thinking about opposing the White House, they might think twice. But we are so far down the line and down the process in most states that it's going to be hard for some states to turn around and redraw lines. But there are active measures in Tennessee and Alabama, Louisiana, which has more to do with the Supreme Court case, but to redraw maps and try to give Republicans an advantage in a handful more seats heading into November.
In Ohio, a former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown easily won the primary to challenge Republican Senator John Husted. Could this be a close election in November? Will Vivek Ramaswamy candidacy for Ohio governor influence those results?
Well, Ohio Senate is going to be one of the biggest Senate races in the country. So Ohio isn't that swing state that some of us remember being. It is a red state, and it's a state where Senator Sherrod Brown just lost re-election in 2024. But 2026 is a different year. 2026 with an unpopular Republican in the White House. It looks like a traditional midterm in which the president's party suffers. Sherrod Brown has an opportunity to avenge his loss 2 years ago and to defeat Husted this time. But this is the type of difficult state, meaning a Republican state, that Democrats are going to need to win in order to capture the Senate. They don't need to win Republican areas to win the House, but they're going to have to win at least 1 or 2 or 3 Republican states in order to win a Senate majority.
Nathan, before we let you go, I want to get your take as we look towards the general election in November. Should Democrats still feel confident in their ability to take the U.S. House or the Senate, or both?
Well, history is on Democrats' side in that the president's party usually loses, particularly House seats. Special elections have been going well for the last year and a half. There was one Michigan State Senate election last night as well. It was a district where Harris finished ahead of Trump by just 1 point, and yet the Democratic candidate won by 20 last night, and that has been the trend. But it's a combination of things that Democrats need. They need to have high Democratic turnout. They need independent voters who are frustrated with the economy to support Democratic candidates. And they would also be helped by Republicans if Republicans can't figure out how to turn out the Trump coalition in an election when he is not on the ballot. And Republicans have struggled with that in elections over the last year and a half.
All right, great insight. Nathan Gonzales, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Nathan, thank you so much for your time.